Morning, great morning, wonderful morning, spectacular morning, outstanding morning. Yes, a wonderful reminder that you, me, all of us get to choose what things mean. Remember, everything is fundamentally meaningless. Write that in your notes again. Everything is fundamentally meaningless. You, me, all of us. We've been given the gift to give meaning to everything that's fundamentally meaningless. And why that's so important is because those meanings, whatever they are, good, bad, indifferent, they deliver us onto a frequency. And it's that frequency that's the attractive force in our life. It's what determines what we're repelled by, what we're attracted to, what's repelled by us, and what's attracted to us. See, the whole point is that the power is within us to choose our thoughts. That's your greatest power. Your ability to think whatever you want to think, to accept, to reject ideas. And remember, like attracts like in the mind. And that principle of like attracts like is something that works for everything. If it works in the mind, it also works everywhere else. See, you're powerful, you're strong. It's just a matter of tapping into that power, into that strength. And the only way you're going to be able to tap into it is if you practice it. So, practice everything that we're sharing with you here as if your life depends on it. You know why? Because it does. So, you should have a goal card with you. Make sure you have that with you here, and also a copy of this book and something to take notes with as well. And make sure you highlight this book, that you mark it up, that you underline it, because that's what's going to help to embed it within you subconsciously. Remember, when you do something like that, when you write, when you underline, what you're doing is you're helping to embed it within you subconsciously. And that's where all the power is. Remember, your subconscious mind is a loyal servant that proves whatever's in front of it. With that being said, it's not a loyal servant to you, it's loyal to what you have made important. And you're the one who gets to determine what you're making important. So allow that to be something that you engage with. All right, so let's go into this. We've been diving into this book, and what we've been talking about from the last call was this exercise where Charles recommended that you put into this the percentages of how much you think, how much you're thinking about your health, your time efficiency, your creative power, and so forth. And we dove deep into some of the meanings for this to where we were led up into page 36, I believe is where we were, or 37. And here we're going to dive into this part right here. Actually, it was page 37. Concentration. Now remember, concentration is focus. And he's sharing with you how to put the percentage there when it comes to your concentration. Can you concentrate? Are you able to focus, to hold on the screen of your mind an image? Because that's what your will is. Do you know what it means to concentrate? Can you direct the thought to any problem which may arise? Or for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes to the absolute exclusion of everything else. Now, again, when you are analyzing this, be honest with it. Don't try to sugarcoat it, just be honest with it. Can you unravel, disintegrate, take the problem apart, see every phase of it, see the cause which brought it about, see the solution, see it definitely, conclusively, and finally, and know that your solution is correct? Can you dismiss the matter and turn your attention, there it is again, to something else without ever recurring to this matter again? If you can do this, give yourself 100%. If, however, you are haunted by, oh, how many of us have fell into this, by fears, which is really constantly worrying and doubting, troubles and anxieties, if when you have no problem to solve, you make one for yourself by drawing on your imagination, if you're afraid of what one says or what the other one thinks or someone else does, then cut down your percentage because if you knew how to concentrate, you would not be afraid of anyone or anything. Ooh, did you catch that? I'm going to repeat that because that is a big one. If you knew how to concentrate, and I'm going to change the word here because this word that he chose is not deep enough and it's not foundational. The word is actually if you understood how to concentrate, you would not be afraid of anyone or anything. Now remember, when you have an understanding of something, it's something that's in you. Oh yeah, I get it. See, you wouldn't have any concerns. It's kind of like if you planted a seed in the ground of the earth. See, like you planted corn and you've gone through it. You've gone through that process of planting the corn before to where you saw that it turned into a plant, then blossomed, then bore the corn as something that was reaped. See, if that was something that you went through, that you got, you understood, you wouldn't be worrying about it anymore if you didn't see that it was coming out. Why? Because you would understand that there's going to be a gestation period before it came out. So you wouldn't try to dig it up in the beginning. You wouldn't be worrying or doubting because you understood it. Well, it's the same thing with this. Think about your goal, whatever that is for you. If you understood the power of your will, if you understood how to focus, and that it's through focus that you are able to get to where you would love to get, provided you are holding the image that is in harmony with how you would love things to be, you wouldn't have any worries at all. You wouldn't even doubt. You would not be afraid of anyone or anything if you understood the power of concentration. You would be in possession of a power which would make every other known power sink into insignificance. Be careful to give yourself exactly the percentage to which you feel you are entitled. This reminds me of when Bob told me this when I was in his studio and I said, I want to make this change and this is what I would really love for my life. What did he say? There's no other way but through the will. You must concentrate. And that's a difficult thing to do if you have the habit of being like a squirrel. My friend Brent brought that into what I share now. It's called it squirrelitis. Now, remember though, if that's what you are engaged with, if that's the habit of yours, the most important thing for you to remember with regards to that is that it's a habit that was formed. You can change your habits. You can change the pattern if you'll just pay the price to do it. Because remember, everything has a price. Write that in your notes. Everything has a price. This, whatever this is for you, if you want this to be made a material fact, you must pay the price for it to happen. And the price you must pay is letting go of who you have been and who you're being, and then stepping into the you that delivers this. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. See, that's a reference to consenting to a new idea of yourself, a new concept of yourself, a new version of yourself. See, that's the price that you've got to pay. And if you're unwilling to pay that price, you know what will happen? More of the same. Why? Because like attracts like. You become what you think about most of the time. Now, as you go through these, okay, here you go. Now strike an average. See where you stand. If you are a little above average, your chart will be something like this: 50% mental product, 80% health, 80% efficiency, creative power 50%, concentration 10%, total 270, divide by 5, 54%. It's very simple. Now, check out what he says here. Assuming that you are earning $1,000 a year and that you feel that your mental product should be worth $2,000 a year, which is the basis for your calculation, then any method which would assist you to increase your earnings power to $2,000 a year would be worth $1,000 a year to you. Again, any method which would bring you health, efficiency in your time, efficiency in your creative power, or increase your ability to concentrate would be worth at least $1,000 a year. Many found that the Master Key teaching does all of this and more, and that's what we're diving into. Now, let's go to some advice. Remember, and here's something about the word remember. When you hear someone say remember, when you see it printed, pay close attention to it because it's an emphasis on something that's very important. Fully to understand the grand and beautiful thought requires perhaps as much time as to conceive it. Now let's go through that again. Fully to understand. And remember, the only way you understand is through the process. It's by moving through it. It's through experience. Fully to understand grand and beautiful thoughts requires perhaps as much time as to conceive it. See, this is pointing out how if you want to think powerful thoughts, you have to first engage with the idea of starting to think powerful thoughts. It's like what Robert Collier shared. The secret of all power, all success, all riches is in first thinking powerful thoughts, successful thoughts, thoughts of wealth, of supply. We must build them in our own mind first. You've got to build it in your own mind first. If you wish to enjoy the utmost practical benefit from the Master Key System, go slowly. And this is what it means by that. Don't be in a hurry. Don't try to catch up. Rush is a state of fear. Write this in your notes. I accept that I am going to hear exactly what I need to hear when I need to hear it. I accept that I'm going to hear exactly what I need to hear when I need to hear it. I remember when that jewel of wisdom was shared with me. Don't try to be in a hurry. Many of you are trying to catch up. Big mistake. If you're behind with where we are in the book, if that's how you're thinking, you're not serving yourself. Because all you're going to do is just try to cram and cram and cram. And from there, what that is that's data collection. And remember, the only way that the change happens is through implementation. It's through the use, and it's through repeated implementation that it gets embedded within you subconsciously. Don't concern yourself with trying to catch up. Don't concern yourself with being in a hurry. Move through it slowly to absorb it and to use it. That's what's going to deliver the change for you. transfuse into your mind the contents of one part only for each week for 24 weeks. Here he's talking about embedding a pattern of thinking in you. Realize the meaning of every phrase. This is why I go so deep into breaking down these sentences, because I want you to understand it better. Because from that, when it's bite-sized chunks, it's so much easier to digest. Haven't you found that? And consult the master key constantly as your perpetual help and stimulus. Each time you read the work, you will get a better understanding of the eternal cosmic principles. See, this is why the repetition is so important. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe you've gone through that with me as you've been in these calls. You've heard me say the same thing again and again and again and again and again. And finally, one day, oh my God, it means something so much different. Why? It's not because the information has changed. If you see something different, which means you're feeling something different about something that's been repeated, it's because you've changed. So read it again, study it, apply it again and again, which is the most important piece. And then from there, you'll get those aha moments. Tell others of the master key so that more and more people can reciprocate with you as conscious adepts in harmony. Now, I love how he said that, conscious adepts. To be consciously competent, to lead people to be consciously competent into achieving outcomes, because most people, they are completely oblivious to it. And even people who are highly successful are, in most cases, unaware of how they got to where they got. Go ahead and ask them. This is a wonderful exercise for you to go and speak to someone who has achieved some incredible success and ask them how they got there. You will find that they will most likely say that they'll start talking about the things that they did, the physical things. Well, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. Those are all secondary. See, the real way they got there, the true cause was because they engaged magnificently with their higher mental faculties, with their imagination, their perception, their reason, their will, their memory, their intuition. They believed. They had incredible habits. That's how they got there. Now let's go further. Part one. That much gathers more is true on every plane of existence, and that loss leads to greater loss is equally true. Remember, this is something we went through in this chapter. These are bullet points now that he's coming out with. Two, mind is creative, and conditions, environment, and all experiences of life are the result of our habitual or predominant mental attitudes. This is something that I recommend that you write in the first person. There's a lot of things that I recommend you write in the first person. Let's feel how this sounds. Mind is creative, and conditions, environment, and all experiences in my life are the result of my habitual or predominant mental attitude. So, Mina, you said you don't understand the first one. That much gathers more is true on every phrase. It's like attracts like. That's what that is. Like attracts like in the mind. Put that in parentheses in a section either above or below this. That's what the reference is to. As within, so without. If you live abundantly emotionally, if you live abundantly in your heart, if that's what you are emotionally involved with, then guess what? You're going to get more of that. Whatever you focus on, you get more of multiplied. Same thing for negativity as it is for positivity. That's what comes to you. And number three, the attitude of mind necessarily depends on what we think. Therefore, the secret of all power, all achievement, and all possessions dependent depends upon our method of thinking. Well, I put a big box around this. This fuses beautifully with what Neville Goddard shares. Everything depends on your attitude towards yourself. That which you will not affirm as true of yourself can never be realized by you. For that condition alone is the means whereby you accomplish your goals. I'm going to read this again and then apply that to what you're wanting to make an outcome of your life for. The attitude of mind necessarily depends on what we think. Your attitude of mind necessarily depends on what you think. Therefore, the secret of all power, all achievement, all possession depends upon our method of thinking, upon your method of thinking in your life, upon my method of thinking in my life. Remember, thought externalizes itself. You become what you think about most of the time. This is true because we must be before we can do. And we can do only to the extent of that which we are, and what we are depends on what we think. Oh my gosh. This is something that you should write out and embed within you and lock into and apply. This is huge. What's true? That the attitude of mind necessarily depends on what we think. And this is true because we must be before we can do. In order for you to do, you must first be. Something that you can write here around this is this: be, do, have. That's the order. Be, do, have. If you want to have that, you have to do something to get it. But in order for you to do the things that you need to do to get that, you must be the person that does it. In other words, you've got to believe, you've got to think that way. That's how you're going to get there. That's the only way you're going to get there. Unfortunately, many of us have it out of order. If I could have that, I'll be able to be the person that does all this amazing stuff. Wrong. Those people don't pay the price, which means they never receive it. This is true because we must be before we can do. You can write it this way. This is true because I must be before I can do. And we can do only to the extent that we are. And I can do only to the extent that I am. And what we are depends on what we think. And what I am depends on what I think. And who gets to choose that? You. It's always going to be you for your life, and it's always going to be me for my life. We cannot express powers that we do not possess. The only way by which we may secure possession of power is to become conscious of the power. And we can never become conscious of the power until we learn that all power is from within. All power is from within. Remember, the only creative power is thought. The true world that you live in, that I live in, that we all live in, is an imaginal world. It's a thought evolved world. Everything on the outside is the world of effect. We've been conditioned to think that we live in this material world. We've been conditioned to think from the outside in, to habitually think about all that stuff out there, the results, the results, the results, the results, not understanding that that way of thinking delivers more of the same. Remember the exercise that I recommend that you do daily, 3 times a day for about 2 or 3 minutes? Set some time aside to invest in how you think by looking at physical things of wherever you are from the perspective that whatever that thing is that was made was in someone's mind in the form of an image before it became the material thing. That one exercise, if you'll continually do that, will help you to shift how you're thinking in a beautiful way. But see, this is where you've got to exercise that. That's an exercise that I've given to you. And it works beautifully when you engage with it. Because then from there, once when you do that, when it's kind of like the will exercise that Bob gave. The more you do that, the more you'll realize, wait, all I have to do is just come up with the image and then be loyal to that unseen reality. And then it'll show up on the outside, just like that camera, just like that sign, just like that car, just like the sidewalk. Remember, they're all results, all of which were externalized from thought. And see, that's what you have in you. That's the power you have in you. And it's not a matter of whether or not it's in there, because it is. It's a matter of whether or not you're going to exercise it, to use it. And if you do, you'll start seeing the change. It's not a matter of whether or not you'll see the change. The change will happen automatically. Why? Because we're dealing with law, and the law always gets enforced, regardless of whether or not you're knowledgeable or ignorant about it. Now, here, I'm going to emphasize something about when he says possess. What he's talking about is an understanding of the power. All of that power lies within us. In most cases, it's dormant. Why? Because it's not being used. So possession that he's referring to is gaining an awareness of it. We cannot express powers that we do not possess. The only way by which we may secure possession of power is to become conscious of power. And we can never become conscious in power until we learn that all power is from within. There is a world within, a world of thought and feeling and power, of light and life and beauty. And although invisible, its forces are mighty. Now, that's a beautiful gem right there. Think about your imagination, your perception, your reason, your will, memory, intuition. All of that's invisible. The only thing that you see are the uses of those powers that are in you. It's kind of like electricity. You can't see electricity, but none of us will ever see electricity. But we can see the effects of it. Now, again, this ties into the power that's in you. And when you dive into that and you start thinking from the world within, then what will change is the world without. Why? Because your outer world is a reflection of what's happening in your inner world. Write that in your notes around this section. My outer world is a reflection of what's happening in my inner world. Your inner world's a world of thought, more specifically, automatic thought. Remember, you can think what you please. If to think is to form, you can form what you please. Gain control of that. That meaning your inner world. Oh my gosh, everything on the outside will change. See, this is where you got to exercise it. Now, we went through a lot here in this call. But as said with many, many of these calls, my big question is how are you going to use it? How are you going to apply it? How are you going to practice it in your life? And if you haven't been practicing it, big deal. Start today, start now. And remember, don't try to catch up. Just act on whatever you need to act on right now. Consent to the idea that you're going to hear whatever you need to hear when you need to hear it. And then press on, move forward. You got this. Wow, wasn't this cool? Type in the comments hearts if this rocked you beautifully. I hope that it did. I hope that it shook you to your core to the point of where now all you're going to do is go into action mode. Move your body to get things done. Thank you so much. All right, so from here, go ahead and unmute and share the magnificent golden rule.
Application.
Application, baby.
Application.
Thank you.
Application.
Have a great day.
All right, get jiggy with it. See you soon.